A very good evening, everyone. Anyone, please confirm, am I audible to you?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir. A warm welcome to all of you as we are going to begin with the day 2 of our AICTE ATAL Faculty Development Program on Cyber Defense in Action, Mastering Web Application Security. So I hope that the day 1 offered meaningful insights, productive learning, and constructive academic engagement. We are going to proceed with our first technical session of the day 2, that is focusing on highly critical aspect of web security, that is authentication and session session management testing. Sorry. So in the modern web system, authentication and session handling, the forms, that is a core modern web based ecosystem. Authentication and session management, through which the user interact with the systems. Any kind of the weakness in these mechanisms, in these controls, these can directly lead to the account compromise, unauthorized access, identity theft, and severe operational risk. So therefore, the understanding how to evaluate, how to test and strengthen these mechanisms, that is essential for cybersecurity practitioners, researchers, and educators are like us. So, to lead with the same, this important sessions, we are privileged to welcome our esteemed expert in this field, Mr. Alok Karnik, who is a co-founder of KAS Cyber Ventures India, who brings over 18 years of extensive professional experience in the cybersecurity strategy, compliance, and enterprise security management. Mr. Alok has worked across multiple industry domains, including IT, manufacturing, real estate, fintech, NBFSCs, enabling him to deeply understand regulatory landscapes and security governance needs at an organization scale. His past professional journey is in the United States with the Fortune 50 companies like Google, Twitter, McAfee, Walmart, Deloitte, has provided him with a remarkable perspective experience on the global security architectures and real world cyber defense challenges. Beyond his professional experience, Mr. Alok is also an avid motorcycle enthusiast known for completing over 50,000 kilometers on the Triumph Rocket 3R and a former event organizer and DJ during his time in the US, reflecting creativity, discipline, and passion alongside his technical expertise. So, we are indeed honored to have him guide us today. With the great pleasure, I invite Mr. Alok Kaming to begin his first session of the day, too.
Hello, good evening.
Good
Thank you for
evening,
the
sir.
introduction, Dr. Vishu. I hope everyone's had a good, few sessions so far. And let's learn today about, authentication and session management. I will need to share my screen, Dr. Vishu. So,
Yes, sir, I'm going to provide rights to you.
okay,
Yes, sir. It's all given to you, sir.
perfect. Place current share. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Perfect. So if anyone, by the way, it's not necessary. This is a nice, easy session. Let's not remain silent. So if someone has a question in between, please unmute yourself and feel free to interrupt. ऐसा कुछ ये नहीं है कि कोई बोलेगा तो interrupt नहीं कर सकते. It's let's keep this casual. ठीक है? Let's start with this. Now, any web application that is developed, right? That is basically you can have 10,000 features in it. लेकिन अगर आपका authentication and session management में गड़बड़ हुआ. By the way, so Hindi English chalega, right? In between?
Yes, sir, the session is all yours.
Okay, perfect. So if in case these two critical components get destroyed, then your entire functionality and data privacy, etc., gets affected to a very large degree. So let's learn today, how this is done in the best method possible. Now, understand that this is going to be largely a theory session with not much of a demo kind of environment because it's not possible to pack all this in 1.5 hours. Okay, so now why does authentication? What is authentication? What is session management? Authentication basically, भाई आप कौन हो? इन सिमिलर आप घर में घुसते हो किसी के या बिल्डिंग जाते हो तो सिक्योरिटी गार्ड पूछता है ना भाई आप कौन हो, तो दे विल चेक योर डेटा। अभी वो क्या माई गेट सिस्टम होता है, तो इन दैट दे विल check, okay, this is your, you have a gate pass or not, okay, you're authenticated, fine. So a session basically a small temporary badge given to you that allows you to roam in that particular area. Now, when you enter a whole migrate environment, that same session token may not be used or cannot be used for another society. Or if I come into your college, I may be given a visitor pass. Now, will that visitor pass work in another college or another university? No, because the name of SGT is there on that. So it's just a temporary situation. If these two fail, then someone can impersonate someone. आपके नाम का कोई और आ सकता है वहां पे. So that can lead to account takeover, ransomware, deployment or whatever. And basically, अगर आपका authentication, secure and session management अच्छा किया हुआ है, it is a first line of defense. That is why your banks all tell you कि please keep your OTP safe. Why OTP safe? Because it is your first line of defense. अगर OTP आप किसी को दे दोगे, फिर तो then you have got all the scams, किसी के अकाउंट से पैसा चोरी हो गया and all those things, right? So that is your first line of defense. Now, let's take some real world case studies. There are companies like Snowflake, which in itself is a cybersecurity company. MGM International is a hotel chain. Okta again is a security company. Microsoft is, we all know Microsoft. What happened in Snowflake is there was no MFA enforcement on customer accounts. अब enforcement मतलब क्या? There is, you have got enforcement and you've got enablement. MFA is enabled, लेकिन enforce नहीं किया है. मतलब सीट बेल्ट दिया हुआ है लेकिन हम सीट बेल्ट को कोई पुलिस पकड़ेगा नहीं, तो फिर फायदा क्या है लगा के? तो सीट बेल्ट ना ही दो. So how secure is driving a car without seat belt? Very insecure. Something can happen to you. Same thing. If you do not have MFA, if the credentials of that website are compromised in some manner, then your MFA will save you on that in that respect. You'll get a notification that someone's trying to log in. And by the way, if you have not enabled MFA at a personal level on all your accounts, be it Twitter, Facebook, whatever, your Instagram on or all other portals, आपके Zepto, Wipto, whatever जो होगा, आपको करना चाहिए. Not just yours, even your family members, and especially your children. MGM results, same thing. Social engineering attack. वेयर एट द हेल्प डेस्क सपोर्ट. हेल्प डेस्क को बोला कि यार ये अकाउंट है सर और पासवर्ड लॉक हो गया है सर, प्लीज जरा हमारा पासवर्ड एनेबल कर दो. ठीक है. नाउ हेल्प डेस्क वेरी ऑफन हैज द एबिलिटी टू गो अनलॉक अ लॉक्ड अकाउंट. Now in this situation what happens is when the account is unlocked without verification of who the actual user is, this can have severe consequences. अभी अगर आपका बैंक अकाउंट लॉक हो गया, you have entered the wrong password twice or 5 times, account is locked, I call up help desk and say कि please unlock my account. ठीक है. Some bank goes and unlocks your account. How does a bank know that you're the legitimate person that's calling, right? This thing happened at MGM and it led to a complete system shutdown. Now they are saying approximately $100 million loss, लेकिन who knows what the actual value is. Okta में यही हुआ. What are HAR files? We'll see later on. HAR files are basically, it's given to your customer support. It contains a lot of uh, headers and cookies and session information, etc. Now, if this information is given to unauthorized people, they can use it to replay those tokens and log in with under somebody else's name because the token is valid. Now, Microsoft, the same thing happened. Weak validation, unauthorized access, the token was forged. It was used by somebody else. Now, what is common in these four examples and other companies that have faced something similar is they became news headlines. कि हाय तौबा ये हो गया वो हो गया. So don't be a news headline. So when you make cybersecurity products or any kind of authentication based mechanisms, Remember, this can have severe consequences and you can actually end up being a news headline. And given the fact that today there's a lot of emphasis on data privacy, Europe has GDPR, your India has that DPDP Act that will probably, be enforced in the next few years. So please take care on this. What are our critical security issues that we have noticed within the software development world? Now, we all today, no, all of us have moved away from native tools and we all go on to web-based tools or SaaS tools. SaaS is software as a service. MFA is not enforced or not enabled or a combination. तो अगर MFA नहीं है, तो then, you know, we have problems with authentication. Session persistence is basically आपका session चालू है. It has never ended. So even after 3 years, you log back in, it'll log you in back. सो अगर ये आप सोचो, अगर आपका लैपटॉप खराब हो गया, आपने किसी को दे दिया, someone can take that hard drive, copy it, copy the entire content, remove the tokens, put it into some other machine, and log in from there because your session is still active. The token is still valid. ये token server side पे invalid हुआ ही नहीं है. Now MFA exploit, so MFA fatigue. अगर हर 2 मिनट पे you are asked to do MFA, please enter the code, please enter the code, anyone will get annoyed here. So now the point is that we should have MFA in such a manner that the token length should, the validity of the MFA token should be, like there should be a limit to it. If you have to enter every 5 minutes, then people will get annoyed. If you have to enter after 3, 4, 8, 10 hours or whatever, or days altogether, then that's not a good thing either. Remember me cookies. What are these things? When you log in, you have this remember me on this device kind of option. Now, if this cookie or token is not set to expire at some point, the session will again be persistent. Irrevocable JWTs. What are JWTs? JSON Web Tokens. Right? Now, these web tokens also, if they are not revoked properly, then this is also can lead to authentication failures. Now, this is all part of software development, part of your authentication life cycle. Eternal reset links. What are reset links? How often, I'm sure all of you have done at some point that you have taken some kind of, your password bhul gaya, and now please send me a reset link, password reset link. Now, this reset link is ideally valid for, say next 5 minutes or next 10 minutes or next half an hour. Agar ye reset link is always valid, then maybe the token is being stored on the server to validate you. And if the security of that website or application is compromised, then we can have somebody logging in without your consent. Or if your email account is compromised for some reason, then this account reset link can be used to log in on your behalf and reset the password, effectively locking you out. Any questions so far? Please feel free to unmute yourself and ask. ऐसा कुछ ये नहीं है. Okay. So in everyday language, we use passwords. So password kya hai? Is some control you use, or a house key, for example, is a password. Session cookie kya hai? That is basically allowing you to be in that particular environment. Now, local storage versus session storage. When you go to any concert, right? You have got a backstage pass versus an event pass. Backstage pass gives you access to everything. So that can be taken as local storage. But the event pass is only given to you to access the event. आप वो जहाँ performance हो रहा है वहीं पे जा सकते हो. That is your session. आप बस उसी सेशन के लिए है. बैकस्टेज के लिए अलग लगता है. तो you can be compartmentalized. So admin का access अलग होगा, user का access अलग होगा. Right? So then MFA. MFA में क्या है? You've got your door on your locks these days, right? So चाबी भी होती है, number pad भी होता है. Maybe there's a fingerprint scan also. So multiple things. We have all used, Google Authenticator or Microsoft ID Authenticator. So these things are used for double verification. Session timeout क्या है? Your badge is expired. You leave the premises, you're done. You cannot access it anymore after some time. आप बहुत बार, if you have visited some companies, in campus, they give you a badge and you tag the badge to enter the place. I mean, when the badge is given back to security, that badge is turned off. So अगर वही badge लेके कोई अगर जाएगा ऑफिस अंदर, तो वो एक्सेस नहीं कर पाएगा क्योंकि your badge is turned off. Simple example is hotel key cards. When you check out, your hotel key card is not valid anymore. Now, if this is not done, then your attackers can clone the credentials and hijack your sessions as well. Now, अभी वही देखो ना कि अगर आपके होटल रूम की चाबी किसी ने क्लोन कर दी, तो आपके गैर मौजूदगी में your room can be accessed by unauthorized people. What are fundamentals here? Now, we have done password authentication, MFA, pass keys, and account recovery. This is basically the 3-4 methods that we use on a daily basis these days. Password, I think we all know what username password are. Uh, Even if you do store the passwords, please store them by hashing them. Ideally speaking, we should not be storing passwords because we've got technologies today like sign in with Google and sign in with Microsoft and all those things. So we can hand off the authentication to a third party. MFA क्या है? Again, we have seen those OTP codes, SMS आता है, authenticator पे एक OTP आता है, that we can enter, फिर access मिलता है. Password and pass keys. Now, pass key एक थोड़ा ये है कि it is slightly different than passwords where it is a cryptographic key that is present with you at all times. तो वो आपके डिवाइस पे होता है. It will not move away from you anywhere. So it is basically authentic, ensuring that it is the same person who is trying to log in. Now, account recovery is also another way where you can authenticate yourself. Maybe to you have all forgotten password, so आपको एक account code आता है, फिर आपको यहाँ पे enter करो, तो ही आप access आपका account recovery password reset कुछ कर सकते हो. Now this area is largely overlooked because sometimes it is a different mechanisms aside from the actual software development. This is like a backdoor situation. So your support tech can go and enable the account through some kind of admin level access without proper verification. This actually happened with MGM resorts, as we saw earlier. Now, in this account recovery, what mechanisms or what protocol should we follow? एक पिन दो किसी को, like हाँ गिरा आप ही हो, okay ठीक है. This especially happens now, for example, if I have to manage or call up my bank in Bank of America, then they will ask me कि, okay, what is the pin? Now I've been living back here for many years, so मेरा वहाँ पे account is not exactly valid. I've turned it off basically. So I have to actually call up Bank of America customer support and tell them, I'm trying to log in, please provide me the OTP or whatever. So they'll send me the OTP that time. They'll verify, okay, what is my SSN number? आपका last address क्या था यहाँ पे? Then they'll check all this information. Okay, ठीक है, no, this is a legitimate person. Then they'll give me access because I've turned off my access for that account, so no one can misuse my bank account over there. MG में होके, of course, it led to massive disruption and data exposure as well. Now let's take an example here. When we say this is invalid username or password, what is the messaging that should be provided as part of best practices? अगर कोई login कर रहा है and login गलती से गलत तरीके से किया, what is the message to be provided? Should they be given like invalid username? और पहले आप username check करोगे, तो यहाँ पे गलत क्या है कि while the username was invalid, तो I can say कि the invalid username. जैसे ही यूजर नेम वैलिड हो गया और मैं पासवर्ड गलत डाला, तो आया इनकरेक्ट पासवर्ड. नाउ इट मींस दैट द यूजर नेम इज वैलिड बट द पासवर्ड गलत है. सो इन दिस केस आई नो आई कैन पुट एफर्ट ऑन दिस एज एन अटैकर. आई कैन पुट एफर्ट ऑन दिस यूजर नेम. अब इस यूजर नेम को मैं ब्रूट फोर्स करूंगा. नाउ आई कैन ब्रूट फोर्स 6 कैरेक्टर पासवर्ड, 7 कैरेक्टर पासवर्ड, 8 कैरेक्टर पासवर्ड. If the credentials are weak, then the probability of breach is higher. इसीलिए बोलते हैं कि आपका पासवर्ड रखो, क्या लोअर केस, अपर केस, नंबर, स्पेशल कैरेक्टर एंड लेंथ एज वेल, इसलिए बोलते हैं. Now, this can also be used for any kind of, SQL injection kind of situation. Uh, MFA में भी हो सकता है. Uh, so this basically is used to provide proper messaging. So when you are doing any kind of, uh, you know, error code response, or any kind of response is given back as a, you know, as a messaging, then make sure that the messaging is very, very generic. Don't let it give an idea to the attacker that this is something different. Just put, re-enter the credentials or invalid credentials, something like that. तो ये सर्वर रिस्पॉन्स होता है एज पार्ट ऑफ मैसेजिंग, दैट शुड बी स्टैंडर्डाइज्ड. व्हाट आर बेस्ट practices for authentication? We should be implementing MFA everywhere. Uh, Hash the passwords properly. Ideally speaking, do not store passwords, but if you have to, then do not store them in plain text. Always, always, encrypt them. There is a service called Have I Been Pwned, or HIBP. Just search, Google search HIBP and enter your username, your email address over there. This website, by the way, has been developed by a security researcher from Australia. It's a very credible site. Please enter your username, or your email address, and scroll down to see in which data breaches has your email address been exposed. This same thing can also be used for passwords. So if your company can use the service from HIBP to, check against breach passwords, you will actually get a notification that this password has been identified somewhere. So then we can go and tell the user कि भाई अपना password बदल दो. If you're performing authentication at your end, then implement rate limiting. Otherwise, you can be subject to brute force attack. For example, if I'm trying to, enter your password 5 or 10 times within 1 minute or in 5 minutes, then the account should be locked out, right? This is similar to your entering your wrong pattern on your phone, right? Or a wrong key code on your phone. You have reached 5 attempts, please try now after 1 hour. तो ये rate limit होता है क्यों? So that it prevents someone from breaking in. It increases the amount of time needed. Password resets, as we saw earlier, use a token which is single use with a very short expiry window, which is like what, next 30 seconds, 5 minutes, whatever. इसलिए आपके वो एक कभी कभी OTP आएगा ना, this OTP is only valid for next 30 seconds or 2 minutes. Any questions so far? Okay. Now we have looked at authentication. Let's start about session management. What is session management? As defined earlier, session management basically is a logged in state. It gives you some context across a certain area of the web application without having to authenticate yourself repeatedly over time. तो हर 2 मिनट पे आपको एक ईमेल डिलीट करना है, हाँ भाई ओटीपी बताओ. आपको एक ईमेल लिखना है, ओके ओटीपी बताओ. यू वांट टू सेंड द ईमेल, ओके ओटीपी बताओ. दैट इज अनोइंग, राइट? So it allows you to perform that action repeatedly over time, or just be active with the application. What is the primary risk here? That the session can be compromised. And these sessions have been compromised over time. ये कैसे होता है? These tokens can be, stolen. इसलिए बोलते हैं do not visit some, non standard websites, और some, एक कोई शॉपिंग अजीब सा शॉपिंग वेबसाइट होगी, वहां पे मत जाओ. क्यों होता है? बिकॉज द सेशन टोकन कैन बी एक्सफिल्ट्रेटेड. कुछ malware इंस्टॉल हो जाता है कभी कभी by visiting some sites, and your tokens can be exposed. These session tokens basically is a balancing act. तो आपको it doesn't allow you to log in multiple times, but at the same time it gives you security that you are the person logging in. If you have a very long session, then it can invite abuse. Long मतलब कुछ महीनों का या सालों का, whatever. If you have a very short one, देन इट विल फ्रस्ट्रेट द यूजर कि यार यार हर 2 मिनट पे साइन करना पड़ता है. नाउ देयर समथिंग कॉल्ड सेशन रोटेशन. सेशन रोटेशन क्या होता है कि यू आर गिवन अ फ्रेश की. नाउ थिंक अबाउट दिस, दैट इफ यू गो टू योर बैंक लॉकर इन द बैंक एंड आपके पास एक की है, तो वो की अगर आपसे कहीं जाके गुम हो गई, now can somebody go with your token and access your you know vault? Yes, they can, because bank may consider this. Bank may, they are not looking at a face, they're just looking at the token. Just like a website is. A website is looking at a token. They're not looking at the person's face. So आपका टोकन सही है, हाँ ठीक है भाई, आपको एक्सेस मिल जाएगा. Now, if the bank gives you a separate session every time you visit the bank to view your locker, then obviously there is a lot more security here. वो सेशन आपके टोकन आपको गुम भी हो गया तो कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. You get a new token next time, right? So where should this rotation be done? जहां जहां आपका ऑथेंटिकेशन होता है वहां पे आपको आपका टोकन रीसेट करना चाहिए. If you're resetting the password, reset the token, or reset the session. If you're authenticating after some time, then again reset the token. अब periodic refresh जो है, the third point on the right hand side, that basically means that you're automatically rotating the session every X minutes. Now X minutes क्यों है? क्योंकि it depends on the web application. Do you want to rotate after maybe in a critical environment like say a nuclear power plant, you may want to rotate the session every 2 minutes. But in a bank, you may want to do it every 30 minutes to 1 hour. In a normal, office kind of environment, you may do it, at the end of a day, or maybe have it for a few days. You also want to rotate it if you are elevating your access. Agar, some person can perform admin tasks and perform normal tasks as well. Us time pe bhi, ideally speaking, your permission should be changed by giving you a fresh token. Okay, now you're taking the role of admin. Simple case in point, when you do sudo on a Linux environment, दैट मीन्स जो गोइंग इज एडमिन, तो आपको ऐसे जगह पे आपको एक अलग टोकन देना चाहिए इन अ वेब एप्लीकेशन, सो दैट यू कैन गो अहेड एंड यूज अ न्यू टोकन टू perform admin tasks. When you log out of the admin task, your admin token is revoked. Then you come back to your earlier session. When to invalidate sessions, we have seen this, you know, where we have to log out our users, reset the passwords, any kind of timeout that is to be enforced, and before performing any sensitive operations. So user logout to of course है that we have to invalidate, so no one can go and re-log in over there. अगर password reset हुआ, for example, you've got Netflix account, right? If I go and reset my password because I forgot, Netflix will go and invalidate all the devices on which your Netflix account is signed in. से आपका एक मोबाइल पे आपने रिसेट कर दिया, तो आपके दूसरे मोबाइल पे, आपके टीवी पे, आपके लैपटॉप पे सारे सेशन आपके इनवैलिड हो जाएंगे. यू हैव टू गो एंड लॉग इन विद द न्यू आईडी. ना टाइम आउट की जगह पे भी यू आर सिटिंग देयर, अभी बैंक पे होता ही है, बैंक वेबसाइट्स पे. इफ यू जस्ट सिटिंग विद द बैंक ऐप ओपन, तो इट विल टाइम यू आउट कि अगर हाँ भाई 5 मिनट हो गए, लॉग आउट. This is why all this is done, to prevent abuse. Sensitive operations, I just spoke about it, so that uh, you know when we go and do perform any admin tasks, for example, adding a new beneficiary in your account, that is a sensitive operation. कि मेरे को इसको पैसे भेजने हैं, तो इट अगेन आस्क फॉर ओटीपी. हाँ भाई, अभी एक एक आपको एक आइडिया आएगा, प्लीज एंटर दिस बिफोर एडिंग एनी काइंड ऑफ फंक्शन, any kind of we call beneficiary. If you're transferring an amount larger than some X amount, which is your daily limit, then again it's a sensitive operation. So it'll again ask you for some permission. So in such situations बहुत बार आपको सेशन इनवैलिड करके नया टोकन मिलता है आपको. Now all this happens in the back end. You may not realize this, but this is exactly how these applications should be built. Now, how do these tokens leak? अब हम बोलते हैं कि टोकन लीक हो गया, पासवर्ड लीक हो गया. बहुत बार while development of the application itself, These tokens are into your error, trace system.out.println, system.log, console.log, कुछ debug statement डाल दिया just for auditing purposes, or some एक trace बनाने को कि हाँ भाई ये ऑपरेशन हुआ, ये ऑपरेशन हुआ, for audit trail purposes. उसके अंदर बहुत बार developers put these tokens. You must have heard many places where the API key has been exposed. How does this API key land up in log files? Because somebody during development wanted to check whether the authentication is happening correctly or not, and then they forgot to remove it. This happens very often in testing environments, and then they forget to remove. And while promoting that code from testing to QA to production, in this situation, code repository may be chala jata hai because sometimes they hard code the token or the API key inside the code itself. कौन बार बार डालेगा तो अंदर हार्ड कोड कर देते हैं to either some kind of environment variable or just as a variable in the code itself. So if the code repository is not protected properly, then the token can be exposed. We spoke about HAR files in the beginning, HTTP archive files. So these are basically files that contain the entire request response headers and cookies. It could contain some token information along with the headers. So again, these tokens can be leaked in this manner if provided to provided to unauthorized people. तो अगर इन लोगों से दिया तो then in that case they can perform some malicious acts with it. Now, browser development tools, right? Now we've all know with a browser we can, as a developer, we can run network your F11 F12 दबा के we can get the console, we can go through the entire DOM process your DOM structure, network tab लेके कौन सा traffic जा रहा है, traffic हम track कर सकते हैं, traffic के अंदर we can see what kind of request responses is being done. उसमें token जा सकता है while debugging. Sometimes screenshots also are shared with support staff, or it is kept in some Jira ticket, or it is sent over email. This may be sometimes there have been cases where the headers or cookies are exposed in support tickets. Now we have taken say a support platform, a third party support platform. वहाँ पे आपने आपका screenshot डाल दिया. Now if the support platform itself is compromised, then this kind of data can go out. And there have been cases where this thing happens. Any questions so far? Dr. Vishu, any questions from anyone?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, perfect. So let's take an example. How sometimes a token can be exposed. Now this is like a proper, just the raw response, a raw request basically. You can see that there's a get request made to my dash account. Host कुछ तो web dash security whatever ये example है. Session cookie session देखोगे तो there's something dot something dot something. Now now it's possible for an attacker to figure out that this seems like a pattern. What is this x dot y dot z kind of pattern? ये क्या है? If you take the middle part and you take this text on the right hand side and we realize this is decoded from base 64, it contains some data. Now, very often web application developers will put information in this, that is, some maybe the CVV of your credit card or some kind of username, some password, like some token will be there inside. Please do not do such a practice. ये बहुत गलत तरीका है करना, and putting any kind of data like this can lead to token exposure because we can easily trap this data. बहुत बार people go and log into cyber cafes and use these cyber cafe क्या अपना coffee shop sorry or airport Wi-Fi's. How do you know that you're connecting to a proper airport Wi-Fi? It can be a spoofed environment also, and ये होता है. At conferences especially, people know हाँ free Wi-Fi, okay ठीक है हो गया. Hotel free Wi-Fi, okay. This is where traffic can be monitored. How do you mitigate against all this? Now, as we've seen that we have been, writing data over there. So I'm sorry, I didn't end up completing the slide, but yeah, basically remove the token from the logging pipeline. Anywhere we are performing system.out.println or some console.log, remove the logs from there. The logs के अंदर से जो token है, remove that from there. Any headers from that go into your log ingestion environments, say your SIM environment, all this goes into a centralized platform. तो यहाँ से आपके headers निकालो. Any kind of sensitive information that is there in there. Train your support staff to identify if there's a password reset request coming, then please verify accordingly. Have a SOP laid out कि अगर ऐसे ऐसे क्वेश्चन का गलत गलत जवाब आया होगा तो do not go ahead with the account reset. Please go ahead and deny the request and maybe escalate it. डॉक्यूमेंटेशन और स्क्रीनशॉट्स में आप एक प्लेस होल्डर इमेज डालो या तो ब्लैंक आउट दैट एरिया वी कैन ऑलवेज पुट अ ब्लैक मार्कर ओवर इट सो दैट द डेटा इज नॉट पुश्ड आउट. बहुत बार हम लोग अनजाने में हम विल सेंड दिस ऑन व्हाट्सएप टू समबडी. Make sure that when you send screenshots to people, there is no what do you call sensitive information over there. बहुत बार हम एक पूरे आपके स्क्रीन का स्नैपशॉट भेज देते हैं, आपके बाकी टैब्स कौन से ओपन है, ये एक कैन सेंड अ रॉन्ग सिग्नल. एक केस हुआ था वेयर somebody was viewing दिस स्ट्रीमिंग मूवीज, जो पायरेटेड मूवीज मिलते हैं ना, his second or third tab was a streaming movie site and he is presenting online at some meeting or whatever. तो वो दिख गया बॉसेस को कि भाई तो मूवीज क्यों देख रहा है यहाँ पे. So these things can cause can cause your tokens to be leaked because you're visiting weird websites. वहां से malware आ सकता है, आपके tokens लीक हो सकते हैं. आपके databases में, code repositories में, data stores में, if there is a token, then remove it. You know why? Because these things are backed up. Your repository is also backed up. So if you do not remove the token in the main repository, your token also goes into your backup. Very often the backup itself is not protected, doesn't have a password or is kept insecurely. Then the backup is exposed, then आपका token also is exposed. So remember that cybersecurity is not कि आपने application बनाया तो it is all good. एप्लीकेशन का बैकअप होता है, उसका लॉगिंग होता है, लॉगिंग गोज टू अ सेंट्रलाइज्ड प्लेटफॉर्म, ऑल दिस कम्स टुगेदर. So cybersecurity is not just one or two things, it's everything together. So now in this case, make sure that your tokens are protected properly. Now, as part of our configuration checklist, at the server side or at the client side, as per when you're configuring your web server and configuring the web application as well, what kind of flag should we be setting? एक secure flag होना चाहिए in your cookies. HTTP only flag is there. So it prevents basically any kind of cross-site scripting attacks. I think cross-site scripting पे आपका एक अलग session हुआ है. So I'll let that session deal with the actual explanation of that. Same-side attributes will prevent your cross-site request forgery attacks. Basically, it'll prevent any kind of cross-domain cross-site attacks where एक token is not valid on another website, or it is not valid on a different subdomain of the same website. So your admin will not, if you're a normal user, you cannot access the admin part. And if you're an admin, you maybe have to log out before accessing the normal user part. The path and domain also, it can be used. See, one domain can host multiple applications. So this can be used to, restrict your your cookie can be restricted to only one or two applications, not to multiple applications. You can have a different cookie for different applications. Yeah, all this works together towards having effective session management. It is not just it's about validating and invalidating the session. It's also about what kind of flags are setting, how the session is being used, the entire life cycle under which domain it is being used, under which path is the cookie being used. Can this be accessed by other JavaScripts? Is a cookie accessible outside the application as well? That's why that's why when you visit all these malicious websites, very often these websites will install malware so that they can steal these cookies, steal the tokens. Now, so far we have seen where we are logging, logging in and storing the credentials at our end. Normally, that comes with a lot of liability in today's world. If the credentials are exposed, then it can be a huge problem. मीडिया में आपका नाम आएगा, बहुत सारे बहुत हंगामा बचेगा. If you have a, what do you call, a stock that is there if you're a listed company, then that can cause your stock to go down, your stock value to go down. बहुत कुछ हो सकता है. नाम तो खराब होगा ही होगा. In this case, what we try to do is we try to hand off the authentication process itself. OAuth basically is an open standard that is used to authorize somebody कि हाँ भाई ये वही बंदा है. Okay, then please grant access to so and so application. Right. So now we can say, okay, Google, I need access to say some, Canva or something like that. Please grant access. Let Canva access my account. Let Gmail allow to access. Let Canva access the account so that I can perform something. I don't need to create an extra ID over there. Now the creation of extra ID part is done by the OpenID Connect methodology. Now you will be then used to authenticate. Now, authorization and authentication are two different things, as we have spoken earlier about, right? So now we don't need to create a separate account everywhere, or even if we do have to create, then it can be used to cross-link the accounts together, right? बहुत बार we need to integrate some two platforms together. कैसे होता है? We grant access. Okay, you get those pop-ups now. Allow so and so tool to access to your account, and then it tells you what all access is there. आपका फोटो जाएगा, ईमेल जाएगा, some email access to email or email address and your email content as well. So those permissions are given then. Now here, what are the best practices? Ensure that you have only exact URI validation. Whenever you are trying to authenticate, then then you have to only allow these URLs to go through. Or if you're going to perform any kind of redirection, then only it should redirect only to X or Y URL based upon successful authentication. Proof key of code exchange basically, it is used for your mobile applications. आप वहाँ पे एक authentication करके you can then go into the app and use the entire app in one shot, where you don't have to have separate segregated environments for accessing it. The JWT or JSON Web Tokens basically has three segments, as part of a claim before trusting the token that is given. Your audience is there, your issue is there, and expiration. The expiration can be, as we spoken earlier, should be set to a shorter value or slightly longer value as depending on the use case. Who's asking for this? Right? Who's the issuer and who's the audience? Basically, मांग कौन रहा है और देना किसको है? That is the overall crux. Rotate the client secrets. Now, as we have seen earlier, right, the client secret rotation is needed because the keys should be kept fresh. Too long a secret can lead to abuse, too short can lead to fatigue. Very often API keys, right, during software development are kept this way, are actually kept, are rotated over time. Why? Because in case something has gone wrong, then the key is rotated. And even if exposed, at some point in time, the old key has no value going forward. Token revocation bhi hota hai, that even the current token before rotation also, I can revoke the key. Now, if a token has been compromised, I know this has been compromised, then I maintain a blacklist. That if this token ever comes, then I know this is malicious because this token has been exposed. So while the token has already been invalidated or has been rotated, etc., it has been compromised. It is in somebody else's hand. So you have to go and maintain the blacklist. Now today, right? AI basically has what do you call accelerated the chances of data breaches, attacks in today's environment. Your password cracking, brute force attacks are effective and very rapid in today's world. I can and an AI-based attack can actually detect whether this is, I should put a 7 character password, 8 character password, 9 character. They can do some very fancy stuff, and I can have multiple, uh, you know, engines running to crack it. तो ये सब चीजें are can have a very devastating consequence if these if you're using basic access credentials. Deep fakes. Now I remember there was one case in between of an actress who had a video was morphed and it became a very big thing. So we can always fake the face and basically go and log in on somebody else's credentials. Biometric security. Abhi a thumbprint. I can take lift the thumbprint, say from say a glass, and put it on the fingerprint scanner. It may go through. बहुत बार now of course Apple has this 3D depth and all those things, but पहले at some point when basic facial recognition was there, if you just show a photo, it could sometimes log you in. This actually used to happen. So then of course technology has advanced over time where all this doesn't happen. But AI can, really give a hard time for this and ensure that the access is broken. Now, phishing attacks basically can be tailored and customized to such a degree that it's very difficult to figure out whether the email is genuine or not. And you will actually go and click on this email and you will actually end up downloading malware and performing some task for somebody. बहुत बार we go and this is a very simple thing, in the unsubscribe link is where people put the actual malware. अरे ये email मेरे काम का नहीं है, unsubscribe. और malware वहीं से आता है. Now the kind of malware that comes and tries to get, infiltrate a system can be very very malicious in this regard, where you will have some problem with your credentials. Now, what kind of protection layers can be put? That basically uh, this is useful for situations where you need some kind of high risk environments or say for example in banking environments यहाँ आपको आपका से पासवर्ड बदलना है या बेनिफिशियरी ऐड करना है या मोर देन एक नॉर्मल अमाउंट किसी को भेजना है नॉन बिजनेस आवर्स पे हाई वैल्यू ट्रांजैक्शन करना है then these such environments need some kind of extra protection. Site as an input basically, not just at the client side, even at the server side. तो बहुत बार क्या होता है कि एप्लीकेशन में दे चेक ऑन द ब्राउजर हाँ ठीक है द यूजर नेम से ईमेल एड्रेस कंटेन सम लेटर्स सम एट साइन एंड समथिंग डॉट समथिंग दैट इज अ बेसिक पैटर्न ये यहाँ पे कर दिया हाँ तो सर्वर एक्सेप्टेड ब्लाइंडली नहीं ऐसा नहीं होता है. So you have to go and set a content security policy, certain tokens that change your state and validate upon submission. तो हर बार आप सबमिट करोगे कुछ चीज तो वो टोकन हर बार वैलिडेट करेगा कि ये टोकन बराबर है कि नहीं. Has it come from the same source? Now in between, if my token is showing to be originating from India, and then suddenly my token changes to come from Singapore, it's not possible that the same person logged in from two different geographies at the same time. So clearly there's something wrong happening here. So in this case, this can be taken as some kind of malicious activity, and the account can be shut down. So that, in a nutshell, is what we have today for some very basic, session management and authentication. I kept some time to have, say, a discussion on how this can be done more effectively. As faculty members, how can you go ahead and teach students what is session handling, what is authentication? So I'm just leaving, 15-20 minutes open for everyone to have any questions or run a discussion. Dr. Vishu?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Uh, Everyone, please wait for some time.
If you have any questions, then they can ask now.
Any participant, if you have any question, you can unmute yourself and you can ask, or you can also write your question in the chat box. Anyone who wants to interact with the experts, they can right now. Thank you, Alok, sir. Your
Right.
session has provided us with a very clear and in-depth understanding of how authentication mechanisms and session controls operate in the real-world environments. So your experience across the global organization and your ability to simplify complex concepts into structured learning truly made the session engaging and impactful. Thank you so much, sir. So we are grateful for this time and effort that you have devoted to being with us today and for the knowledge that you have shared with us is very remarkable. Your contribution has added the value to this FTP, and we look forward for the other opportunities of learning from you again. Thank you once again, sir.
Sure. Most welcome, ma'am.
For the participants, attendance and feedback form is shared in the chat box. Please go through the same. It is mandatory for everyone to fill this form.
Dr. Vishu, I think there's one question from Dr. Sapna Arora. In our daily work, we often share files and use cloud storage. How can we ensure that sensitive data like student or customer information is truly safe? Uh, for ideally speaking, do not put sensitive data on the cloud like this. If you have to, which we all do at ideally speaking, make sure that it is access controlled. Both bar these things, are left with a public access. Very often, this what do you call, uh, it's shared with somebody, and if it has public access or edit rights, then this can have consequences. So make sure that the access control is always there. It is not given to somebody else. Very often in corporate environments, folders are shared. People put on Google Drive, हाँ ठीक है, vendor को दे दिया या किसी और company को दे दिया. But there is no limit on if that file share is revoked after some time. आपको डेटा शेयर करना था, शेयर किया आपने, very good. Why leave it public for the next few months? Revoke it immediately. If it is truly safe or not, that's just a matter of basic, trust on the platform. We all store data on Google Drive, on our photos are there, everything is there. So all we can do is just make sure it is not shared inappropriately or shared to the wrong person. Or if shared, then at least the session or the sharing is revoked after some time. Does that answer your question, Dr. Sapna?
Sir, I just want to ask a question that whenever we install some of the application, almost all the applications, always there is a kind of condition that we have to allow some of the permissions. When in most of the apps, when we do not allow the permission, the app doesn't work. Is there any path or any route we have avoid that permission sharings and still we can use the apps? Because sir,
Uh,
most of the apps are working in that way that we have to allow like Instagram is there, we have to allow the media. If we say don't allow, then they will not work on our systems or our you can say Androids. So is there any way?
You're talking about apps, meaning mobile apps?
Yep, sir. That the mobile apps are there that just need our permissions to access
Okay.
our
No,
contacts and all that.
these apps, these permissions are given for a reason that if you have to, so if you do the example of Instagram, so we'll use Instagram. So Instagram if you have to upload a photo, right? So it needs access to your your local file system. आप photo select कैसे करोगे without that? You can deny permission.
Uh,
That's
Sir,
fine.
no, no, that thing is, yes, you are truly saying that thing is very true. But side by side, they ask for audio as well. Some of the apps, currently, I cannot tell you the exact name because many of the apps we're going through,
Audio is
they,
also needed because maybe you're doing recording, right? So video का भी access होता है, audio का भी access होता है. क्यों? Because in case you're creating a reel, then you're creating some functionality, then maybe the app has a functionality. Now this is why it is important to know whether what permissions are needed. I'll tell you one example. There was, there was एक हाथ में वो teleprompter मिलता है. There was an app on a teleprompter and there was a small Bluetooth kind of device. So you can stand somewhere far away. All these podcasters use this. You can stand somewhere far away and just scroll through the content while reading. So it looks like, वो आप न्यूज़ पढ़ रहे हो. So आपको, you don't have to buy it anything. So in this situation, that app had permission request for GPS location. Now, why do you need GPS location for this app? You understand? So if an app
yes,
permission
sir.
looks weird, then it is a good idea to turn it off. Now, Google Maps, for example, you can give it, uh, you know, what do you call? You can always use in Google Maps, turn the GPS location off all the time, or use only when needed, or on all the time. So if
Sure,
it's
sure,
on all
sure.
the time, then it will track you everywhere. So just keep an idea on what is the granularity to be offered for the app.
Sure, sure, sir, sure, sir.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, for a single page application, is it necessary to handle session management? Because interaction between the client and servers are lesser, no?
Ideally speaking, see, single page, I say it is session management is always needed because see, ultimately at some point it will expire. At some point the it is basically best practices that is needed to be done in a manner that why are we maintaining the token? The token should be there, yes, but the best practices should always be followed across the board. The token should be revoked, token should be cancelled out, and it should be protected. So even if it's single page application or multi page or whatever, इंटरेक्शन ज्यादा इंटरेक्शन है ना, ज्यादा या कम का सवाल नहीं, इंटरेक्शन है. एज लॉन्ग एज इंटरेक्शन इज देयर, वी शुड प्रोटेक्ट द टोकन. Because you never know how that can be exploited further. Maybe the application is not built properly. It can give access to another aspect of the application. It can cause the application to misbehave if the wrong kind of, what do you call, input is given in some manner. The token is there, but if there's a form, for example, on the single page application, you submit the form and you put some, malicious characters in there. So it can behave incorrectly.
Thank you, sir. Yes.
Alok sir, I
Yes.
have one query. Like, if we want to register on any third-party application, and what would you recommend to register for that application? Whether we should go with the Gmail IDs or any like Facebook or LinkedIn that provide the open authentication, that would be
Can
safer, or we should create a
one
separate account
second.
always.
Your voice kind of broke off. Can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, I'm saying like when we want to register for third-party applications, any
Hmm.
website. So what would you recommend? Like whether we should always go with the open authentication applications like Gmail or Facebook or LinkedIn, or we should create a separate account with different password.
It depends. It depends. It's a personal thing. I mean, if you want to integrate everything into Gmail, go ahead with Gmail. If you're okay with using separate accounts, then that's your thing as well. But if you're creating separate accounts, make sure you're using a password manager. Otherwise, क्या होता है ना, people consider use the same password everywhere. वो password @123 and फिर वो एक problem हो जाता है. So make sure you use a password manager so that proper complex passwords are created for every application your web app you're signing into. So you can obviously use OAuth and all those things to, you can use, sign in with Microsoft or sign in with Google. कर सकते हो.
Okay, okay.
But make sure that there is also a place where you can revoke it.
Yes, any other participant have any queries, then you may ask, please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. There is no query.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you, Mamta ma'am. Thank you so much, Alok sir, for
Sure.
this insightful real-time sharing experience with us. So definitely, all the faculty members, all the associates will be definitely using this knowledge that you have provided to us in the research, teaching, and other areas also. At last, again, I thank you so much. We will be definitely coordinating again in another kind of the sessions. Now I'm requesting all the participants to switch on their cameras so that I can record this session also. It's my request to every participant to please switch on their cameras.
कहाँ होता है वीडियो किधर?
Thank you, everyone.
Can I drop then?
Yes, sir. You may drop the call,
Okay,
please.
perfect.
For all of the participants, now we will wait for some time, and we will start the session again at 7:30. Feedback form and attendance form is already shared in the chat box. If you're facing any kind of issues with the same, you can please let me know. Good evening, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, you are audible.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. So we now move to the session 2 of day 2, our AICTE ATAL Faculty Development Program on Cyber Defense in Action, Mastering Web Application Security. So, in this session, we are just going to talk about bypassing access controls. So, we just got a little about this access control in the previous session also, that is at the heart of ensuring the user perform only the actions they are authorized to perform. So, when these controls fail or bypassed, the consequences can include data breach, privilege escalation, system compromise, and operation disruptions. So therefore, the understanding how these controls are tested, analyzed, and secure, that is essential part of any of the cybersecurity profession. So to guide all about this in the session, we are privileged to welcome our distinguished expert and a cybersecurity practitioner, Mr. Rohit Srivastwa, who is a co-founder and managing director of KS Cyber Ventures India. Mr. Rohit Srivastava, he is a renowned cybersecurity strategist, serial entrepreneur, and security evangelist. He has been awarded the prestigious Microsoft Most Valuable Professional title for enterprise security, a recognition bestowed upon leading experts for outstanding contribution and impact in the field. His advisory work span military, law enforcement, and government agencies across the multiple countries where he supports high impact cyber defense strategies, incident response, and adversary takedowns. His expertise is also sought by large corporate enterprises undergoing digital transformation, helping them design secure, resilient, and adaptive security frameworks. Mr. Rohit is the founder of India's first hackers community and conference, Club Hack, that is established in 2006, a movement that significantly contributed to the ethical hacking awareness and security culture in India. He has also been deeply involved in the startup ecosystem with multiple entrepreneurial ventures, including one acquired by the Quick Heal Technologies in 2016. So, a passionate educator, he has designed the MTech program in information security at Savitribai Philip Pune University and regularly delivers masterclass sessions at the premier institutions like IITs, IIMs, and Symbiosis. He is also author of influential publications including Cyber Resilience, Strategic Handbook of Business Leaders, My Data, My Privacy, My Choice. Currently, he is contributing in the several strategic capacities, including Chairman Indo-US Cybersecurity Initiative Advisory Board, Virtual CISO for multiple large enterprises, Advisor to Science and Technology Park, Department of Science and Technology, Government of India. He is also a mentor and advisor to promising cybersecurity startups. We are truly honored to have such an experienced and visionary leader with us today. With the great respect, I invite Mr. Rohit Srivastava to lead this session on bypassing access controls. I welcome you from the core of my heart. So the session is yours now. Over to you, sir.
Thanks a lot, Vijay ma'am, and good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. The profile may have sounded very heavy. I'm not the same kind. I'm still one of the practitioner and one of the learner, someone like you, and keep learning as and when the time allows. And that's what the lifelong learner can do. Good to be here with you guys. We're talking about the ATAL Faculty Development Program. It's a very good initiative, and let's try to see how we can understand few of these topics so that when it is being taught or transferred, the knowledge is getting transferred towards students. How are they getting benefited from the real life situations beyond just the theory part of the subject? So let me start by sharing the screen and I'll present the slide deck there. Okay. So I hope you guys can see the screen.
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Great. Thanks, ma'am. Thanks for the confirmation. So today we are talking about bypassing the access control. I think before this, it was Alok's session where we spoke about what is access control and the methods of having an access control. But this is more of a real world situation that any mistake a web developer does, a mobile application developer does, or any system integrator, system manager does in the real world situation. How does an attacker bypasses those and gets into the system, gets access to the crown jewels, which is your data and activity around? Basically, it is a most critical important item in cybersecurity where we live with only one premise that the data which is mine, which is meant for a particular purpose, should be accessible only to those people and not anyone else. We have variety of names of attacks you can think about. Everything boils down to bypassing of the access control. Talk about something like credential stuffing attack. Talk about something like privilege escalation attack. Any of those are basically making sure that the access control mechanism put by the developer is bypassed and the attacker is able to get past the lock. I'm sure you guys have started very early in the career. You would have noticed the three main pillars of cybersecurity: the confidentiality, the integrity, and the availability. In the CIA triad, access control is primarily meant for the confidentiality of the data. Certain cases, it is beyond this confidentiality. It also goes into integrity. Why? Because then the unwanted attacker should not be able to alter the data. Hence the integrity part. But primarily, access control is for the confidentiality part. Now, the confidentiality part, if you look carefully, is basically set of rules, set of principles arranged by the company, by the administrator, by the department to make sure that yes, it is what it is meant to. Nobody else beyond this have access to that kind of a data. That's the primary objective behind having an access control, right? So okay, sorry. So basically, what are the foundational methods? So what is access control? We have heard about it. We have seen it. Is that my annotation on the screen, or let me just clear it first? Yeah, sorry. Okay. So access control. We spoke about what is that access control, which is basically restricting access to the resources based on who you are or what you are allowed to do. If you're teaching in a campus or if you're a student in a campus, how many of you have access to the exam portal from the backend? Not everyone, right? Why? Because that's where the crown jewel of the exam portal is maintained, that the questions should be visible only to the examiner who's setting up the questions. The answers should be available only to them. The questions right at the time when it is required is available to students, not before that, not after that. So those kind of policies go into a methodology of access control, which spans over three primary AAA elements of the AAA framework. The AAA framework consists of A, authentication, who, authorization, what can you access, what all activity are you allowed to do, and accounting, what is the proof that what all you do in the system? When you divide the work into these three principles, think of this whole. Uh, I always talk to my students in the complete cybersecurity domain, but even at this stage, think of it as basic real life situations. Bring down things to the first principle thought process. Who is allowed to access the, say, office? What are they allowed to do inside the office? So who is allowed to enter the office? The principal is allowed to enter the office. The professors are allowed to enter the office. Even the janitor is allowed to enter the office and do the cleaning work. What are they authorized to do? When a principal or a director entering an office, there is a limited activity. There's a set of rules created for them. When a professor enters into the room, they have different roles, different activities. And then an accounting, the CCTV feed recorded and stored. Who came in and what did they do? That's where the AAA framework works, and it is the most critical framework for the access control mechanism. When we look at the kind of access controls, the models of access controls, these are popular 5, out of which the third one is the most popular and most used. The first one is the discretionary access control. मेरा डेटा मेरी मर्जी मैं किसको दूं ना दूं. This is more like once you're on your phone, once you're on a browser, laptop, your data, you decide who will get an access to that data or not. Then comes in mandatory access control. Whatever you do, let's talk about a mobile application. Whatever you do on that mobile application, there are still some system enforced policies, like the processor of the phone will be able to see the data. Once you are working with a phone book kind of an application, the data which is stored in the contact book, the phone book will have access to it, because without that access, the phone book will not function. So that's a mandatory access control. Then comes 3 different situation-based access controls. The very first one is the role-based access control, which is the most popular in industry. MAC and DAC are not a very common keyword, but the moment you say in front of anyone RBAC, people understand what is it. RBAC, initially when it got created, it had two different full forms. One was role-based access control and other was rule-based access control. Later on, the rule-based access control was converted to policy-based access control because like anything else, हमारे यहाँ भी short forms are very necessary. We need to have short form for every other word to remember it and use it in long run. So that's where RBAC and PBAC got divided. RBAC, or role-based access control, decides based on your role. Like, if you are the, say, director of an institution, I don't care which person. All I care is what role. The role is director, he would have different access. The role is student, he would have different access. Now, in this particular scenario, suppose the director is unwell or unavailable, and a senior faculty has been given a role of a on-duty director or a temporary access. That person has now been moved into officially the role of director, and for that time period, the access the director on duty will be as good as the director himself. Why? Because it is associated with a role, it is not associated with a person. Then comes in the attribution-based access control. It is more of a context-driven rule, where the context defines whether the person will have access to that data or not. Let me take an example. phone book access, as we spoke about on the mobile. The context of accessing phone book by the phone dialer app is to get the number and call. Fair enough, it will have the access. Whereas the second context is a third-party app like Truecaller is trying to copy the data and take it to the server. And in that particular case, it is, although it is required for the application to work properly, but it is context. And there, the context-based access control can be defined that, okay, give the access to my contact book to the dialer app, but at the same time, you can skip it to the Truecaller app. See, this attribution-based access control can also define on various other contexts. The context could be allow the access of a data on weekdays because it is working day, and don't allow it on weekends. Or so the context changes there, the attribution changes there, which, although with a very fine line, transitions into the policy-based access control, where there is a centralized policy engine. The policy engine has all the rules defined, which could be role-based, which could be activity-based, which could be context-based, which could be source and destination of data based. Those rules will remain on the policy engine, and every other app is just told to pick up and work directly from the context data. Then go to the engine, pick up the rule, and act accordingly. That would be the policy-based access control. Any questions so far? Please feel free to unmute whenever you have a question or drop it onto the chat so that we can tackle them as and when we go. Now, we spoke about access. We spoke about the ability of people to touch your data. Now, while at this moment, we also need to understand what are the ways the outsider can touch my data. What are the attack surface? Think of this attack surface very equivalent to attack surface in defense life. While you are in a warlike situation, the most important thing is have minimal attack surface so that your protection can be focused and you get a maximum outcome. That's where the various attack surfaces comes into picture. Let's look at few of them, how it is going. The very first one is the web
Excuse me,
application.
sir.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So this video will be good if you show me the previous slide.
Okay, just a second. Here you go.
Thank you so much.
Can we go ahead, Chandra?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. In any case, the slides would be available for you guys, so you can focus here and then later on have access to the content from the slides. Okay, so we were talking about the attack surface. What are the various attack surfaces which we should be bothered about? And there are few mentioned here, but bring your basic common sense into picture and you would realize there are multiple other as well. We'll see them. Let's look at these first. The first one is the web application. The typical web application which you have created, which has static pages, dynamic pages, GraphQL, APIs, databases, different user-wise access to the portal, administrative portal, user portal, and then accessing that server itself. So these are the web applications which are an attack surface. One of the very interesting attack surface comes in here is, does the web application interacts with the system behind it and acts like an interface to the prompt of the system. Let me take you to the situation. Let's consider it is a Linux-based system. You run a command on a Linux-based system called as ls, and you get a file listing. But is there a way I can pass on that command via the web application, which will somehow reach the backend, execute the ls command, pick up that data, come out, and show the outcome of the directory? Now, suddenly, although we are talking about a web-based application, but this web application is as powerful as your system application or system command prompt. Let's move on to the next one, the REST and the graph QL or any other APIs for that matter. These are the programming interface. You know about APIs. APIs have capability of interacting with the system, sending data and receiving data, which was very well required when it was created. But now we are living in a situation that API security itself has become such a big industry that there are a lot of startups in this domain who are solving just one problem: API security and API access control. Think of it, the kind of vast attack surface it has opened up. Admin portals, the system, the places where the administrator can go and do changes, that becomes an attack surface. Why? Because the privilege escalation attack done on any system, a regular user can actually increase his or her privilege and act like an administrator, do critical changes onto the system which was not meant to be. Then remote administrative services like remote desktop protocol on a Windows machine or SSH on a Linux, Unix, BSD kind of a machine. Maybe the web-based access to the AWS, Azure, GCP portal. That's also a remote administrative activity where it has become a very, very sweet target for a lot of attackers to break into and do the changes. Now, look at the admin portal and remote admin services. Will you call the website like GoDaddy or Namecheap or Name.com part of your attack surface? Yes, it becomes. Why? Because an attacker can use that third-party application to go inside and fetch, or rather change, the data related to your web portal or web accessories. And from there, the attack can amplify. The other attack surfaces include the different trust boundaries, like user to application trust boundary. The application is basically authenticating the user, that is the user correct or not. And application has to make sure that whoever it was meant to be is the one who is accessing it. Fair enough, good. Have you ever heard the reverse authentication, where the user authenticates the application whether the application which I'm trying to access is legitimate or not? Anyone knows any such example? I would love to hear from you guys. Where the user is challenging the application to prove that the application is authentic or not. Feel free to write it on chat if you remember, but I'll give you one example here. One of the most popular example is banking website, where there is a set of keywords or images which you put or configure the first time you are trying to access that application. Suppose you are accessing HDFC Bank or Punjab National Bank or any of those banks. First time when you create an account, it gives you two things, an image and a text string, which you put. Whenever the user, you and me, when we go and log in, it shows us that image and that string to validate. Was on the day one when you came in, this was your selected, I would not call it secret, but your selected set of indicators which said, boss, you are talking to the right web application. This is not possible with a phishing website or stuff like that. So the moment you land up on a phishing website and you do not see that authentication, that purpose of bringing in that string and that image was to tell user that, okay, you are interacting with a authentic application. That's also a part of attack surface. That's also part of the access control mechanism which can be broken. Next is the service to database connectivity. That's where what kind of data goes into the system and what kind of data comes out of the database system is very strictly controlled. Yes, Dr. Sapna, OTP via SMS is also such an example, but primarily OTPs are used for multi-factor authentication. Now, service and databases, we know because we have used those applications so many times. Whenever we build an application, we make sure that the web user who is accessing the website does not have the admin privilege access to the database so that they do whatever they want to. And that's where the least privilege principle comes into picture. Then the perimeter boundary or internal to external to internal boundaries comes into picture, where at that attack surface point or that entry point, the perimeter security is brought in, something like a regular firewall in enterprise network environment, web application firewall in web application environment, and various other such kind of environments where you have a guard or a sentry sitting in between to allow or disallow accesses. Then comes in the privilege function access. Now, this is where the sensitive operation like administrative tasks, changes in configuration, which may require extra authentication. Remember, whenever you are trying to access a application and you want to do some admin changes, the application prompts you to authenticate once more. Suppose you are working on GitHub and you have to do some core repository changes or core account change, GitHub will prompt you for authentication one more time. Why? Because that's a privilege function. Those become so important that bypassing access control itself is a important keyword in many security controls and security standards. Okay, now let's look at the common weakness enabling the bypass of access control. The common sense is it would be a missing authorization check. What is missing authorization check? Many a times we have seen, and it was long ago very popular, that the authentication will happen on the client side only, on the end user browser only, or even authorization for that matter happens on the end user browser only, which I remember from yesterday's session, you would have understood that how easy that is to break in by a tool like Bobsuit. Either the server side validation is absent or it is only on the client side. So the Bobsuit in between can poke and stop it. Second is the insecure direct object reference. Let's take an example. There's a website called as example.com. There's a page called as example.com/login. Once you log in, it takes you to the page called as example.com/application/some document. if there is a direct object reference vulnerability in that particular application, that means the application is not properly coded to take care of IDOR. This is commonly known as IDOR in short. So if the application is not controlled enough or created in a right manner to stop IDOR, once you have logged out, you would not want anybody else to have access to that content, right? But you can copy the URL and go to the URL directly, which is example.com/application/document/1.pdf. The moment you do that and you are not redirected back to the authentication page and you have given access to that file, that becomes the insecure direct object reference. We are in the academic industry right now, so I'll give you an example. Until last month, CBSE website had one of such issue where the schools, when they're uploading students' profiles, student names, and student photos, the student photos were accessible on a direct URL. All you have to keep doing is keep playing with the URL, and where once you look at the URL, you would understand how easy it is, because it is student ID, which is incremental. Replace 1 with 2, replace 2 with 3, replace 3 with 4, and you would get access to the student data, including student name, student photograph, and I think 1 or 2 more information was there. We identified this, we reported it to CBSE and CERT India, and within 3 to 4 days, that vulnerability was patched and the issue is no longer available. Let's say if it happens, if this weakness gets into hand of a malicious user, what would be the outcome there? What can the person do? In that kind of a scenario, the attacker would sit down, automate the request by changing the reference URL, dump the data, and then leak it out in public that, see, I have broken into. न्यूज़पेपर में क्या आया? न्यूज़पेपर में आया CBSE website hacked, all student personal data like photos exposed. Vulnerability was very small and it could have been fixed very easily, but they were not aware, and that's where our role comes into picture, that we train people around us in a way that they build the system strongly from the base on the day one. The other weakness enabling bypass could be the misconfigured access control list, where rules are not very strict, they are permissive, not properly created, causing the little bypass here and there to manage and allow access to the internal data. एक हम लोग की सबसे बुरी आदत होती है, whenever we pick up a new system, many a time we do not go with the security configuration and rule check, and a lot of such content is left on default allow mode or default allow configuration. What works with that is the system was designed in a way, the default configuration was permissive because it was required, but the role of administrator who deployed that system was to know that fact and configure it properly so that it is not accessible, or you just give the need to know basis data. Such misconfigured ACLs or access control list or rules, as they are called, can cause leakage of data and bypassing of the access control. Then permissive CORS policy. CORS is another very interesting security control, slowly added very recently, not very old, because I remember when we started our careers and we used to do application development and all, there was no concept of CORS and cross-origin policy. CORS is basically cross-origin references to the content, where right now I am accessing the system from my own web server, and some part of the content is started getting accesses from a third-party server who is originating the request If that's not validated, these kind of issues can happen. So I'll give you one example. Let's say one of the most popular use of CORS which I have seen includes even the use of iframe. The iframe which we have seen in early 2000s was a way to embed a website into another one. The way the system would have scripted access to someone else's data and get data from there and use it, or images hosted on one website would directly get embedded into another without even worrying of copying the file, putting onto the server and all. That way, you can create scripts. Suppose attacker.com has a script which can go ahead and run content from, say, our website, or the attacker can picking up data from example.com website and showing it. The moment the CORS is configured properly, this will not work. And it's a very easy, simple configuration people can do. The only thing is, knowledge of that is important to have. Next is input validation, input sanitization, as we commonly call it as. If we do not have input sanitization, there are ways the attackers can access systems. Simple example. When you have more than one Gmail account logged in on one system, one browser, have you ever seen the URL, the way URL changes? The URL always have a parameter called as U, and then the user ID, U/0, U/1, U/2. It is basically switching between the first logged in user, second logged in user, third logged in user, and so on and so forth. That's where, if the attacker has method, suppose it was user is equal to Rohit versus user is equal to Shweta, user is equal to Sapna, user is equal to Prateek. The moment the attacker sees that, okay, by changing just the value of the parameter user, I can change the content, they would start going and attacking and dumping the content. How can you protect that? During the development of the whole application itself, you have to validate that the input which is coming in is sanitized and as per the required login authentication only. If user Rohit has logged in, he should not be able to see the system as user is equal to Prateek, or he should not be able to see the system as user is equal to Sapna. That's where the activity comes in. Now, this all attack is very simple to understand when you keep looking at the address bar of your browser. The way things changes there, the way entries are made, the way the parameter is changing, you can use this and go into the system at various folders, various applications, and see content for others. Most of the web applications which are done today take care of these things, and most of the security consultant who are validating your security of the platform must do these tests to prove that, okay, these kind of vulnerabilities do not exist in the system. Let's look at few of the methodology or the techniques by which attacker can bypass the access control. In today's session, we are thinking primarily like an attacker, and the objective is to bypass various controls the user has to get into the system and get the juicy data, right? Before we move on to this part, any questions so far? Okay, so let's move ahead. Let's look at the various attack methodologies. The one of the most popular one is called as the credential attack or credential stuffing attack. I think in the session, Alok spoke about have I been pawned, right? That's one website where people maintain data, or the researcher is maintaining data whose account has been compromised. Where do this kind of data comes from? Various data leaks, and you hear about so many username password leaked and stuff. If the attacker has availability of various possible password combination, the attacker can keep throwing those passwords at your system and see if it works or not. That's one of the most popular attack methodology. It is also called as brute force in a way, once it is blindly attacked with all variety of passwords. So now the credential stuffing attack can be divided into two. One, the stuffing attack, where a common set of passwords which is potentially known that, okay, Dr. Pratik has in one breach his password was password 1, in another breach it was password A, in third breach his password was password K. So the possibility of Dr. Pratik having password of this system could be anything like password and then some number, one number or one character. So a pool of password can be created and stuffed. That's a credential stuffing attack. But when it goes beyond that and tried variety of passwords, then it goes into the brute force method and called as the brute force attack method. That's one. Second is session manipulation. We saw about the URL manipulation by which user can switch into another user and move ahead from there. That way, session manipulation can happen. Or the other method of session manipulation, which even causes a bypass of multi-factor authentication, is called as the cookie tampering or session hijacking. If I know the exact session string, or if I have the cookie, I copy the cookie from system 1 and keep it onto system 2, that's where the system 2 gets access to it. Think of it as an attack. Think of it as a feature as well. A lot of people would have tried this and seen that on Apple ecosystem, if you are logged into one website on Safari of one device, you can hand off the work to another device, and many a times you are pre-logged in on the device number 2 as well. What is happening? In the backend, Safari from system 1 to system 2 is transferring the cookies and the session handle as well. It's a beautiful feature, but the same feature can also be used as an attack vector. That if it can be transferred, let me copy it and use it somewhere else. Third could be the account enumeration, wherein based on the prompts, you can keep changing value and see whether that particular account number exists or not. Let's take an example of the banking system we spoke about, where bank has an image or a text string coming in. We all know that bank account number is not a secret thing. In any case, you have to give it to someone else when you need to do the money transfer. Hence, every bank has an alternate string. It could be CRN number, it could be customer ID, it could be whatever names they have. It's a different string which is used to log in onto the banking system. And that string is not required to be given to anyone else. So basically, the username is hidden. In that particular case, if I enter a username, a CRN number, or a customer ID or customer identification key, hello,
चुप हो जाओ, ये टैप टू स्पीक कर देगा.
Chavyam, do you have a question? Okay, let me continue. So suppose there is a banking system where you enter the CRN number. So then you see the string or an image which you had configured in the beginning, and then only you enter your password. We spoke about this use case and the application is built accordingly. The same feature can be used as an attack method called as account enumeration, by which I can keep trying variety of such CRN IDs, which in most of the cases is a number string of a finite length. I keep trying it again and again and again. And for whichever number I get the image, I call it out as a valid CRN number. What I'm doing an account enumeration. In any login form as well, if you see, like the one in the example shown here, enter your username or email ID and then enter your password. The moment you start giving me an error called as password incorrect, means the username is correct. I don't care about the password. I wanted to create a pool of username which are valid on the system. Attacker can use a script to automate that part and get a collection of such strings for which your error is going very clear. Fair enough? And then another bypass method is MFA bypass. We spoke about MFA, why MFA is required, what is MFA, it's all there. But can that be bypassed? And then there are ways by which, yes, MFAs can be bypassed. One of the most popular one is the social engineering attack. But then there are other attacks called as OTP relay or OTP stealing, which bypasses your second layer of authentication and brings in the key to someone else. One of the most interesting MFA attack which we have seen in past is earlier, if you remember, some of you have used it. There was a small tiny device called as token hanging to a keychain on which 6-digit number will keep changing. There was a use case where a system administrator kept that key in front of a PC, web camera pointing toward that key, and had access to that web camera wherever he wanted it from. Now, if that goes into the hand of attacker is just looking at a web camera, there is a key kept in front of the web camera and the number is changing. The attacker has got access to your MFA key and bypass your system. It could be a misconfiguration in your multi-factor authentication system. There are varieties of method by which, and some of them are human errors. Like you have seen many of the multi-factor authentication platform today, which has a green and a red button, allow, deny. We have seen large cases where, because the system was prompting users so many times throughout the day, the user was habituated of pressing the green button, and once the attacker came in between, the user pressed the green button and that access was given. So that can also be a method of bypassing. But that was bypassing of the authentication. Now let's see how we can bypass the authorization. Any questions so far?
Like we are using the cookies.
Yes, and cookie stealing can happen, right? If you have the access to the system, cookie stealing can happen, and then the same privileges can be passed on to the perpetrator where the same cookie is kept.
Please help me to correct my statement. Like if we are using the third party application and like code cookies automatically providing all the credentials like our email and the passwords, it will freeze or batch.
I'm not sure if I got your question. You said if we clean the cookies, will it help or not?
No. I mean, like, I want you to clarify my statement. Like, sometimes what we do, we use third party application, right?
Mhm.
And what we do, just provide all the credentials to the third party, and after that, it will breach all the information.
Yes, basically you have given the access to your keys, the secrets, to a third party, and you do not know what is the way third party is created or maintained. So there the third party can have access to your data, and any stealing happening from the third party system can also cause data leakage at your end. Okay. Now we spoke about the authentication or bypass. Let's look at the authorization bypass. Authorization bypass also has different methods, either the horizontal privilege or a vertical privilege escalation, wherein in case of a horizontal where you are at the same level, the vulnerability in the system can allow you to access another user's privilege. So you are changing from Chaitanya to Manpreet. Although Chaitanya has logged in, but because of the issue, because of the authorization bypass vulnerability in the application, Chaitanya can look at the data what Manpreet has. I'm presuming right now that both Manpreet Singh Bajwa and Chaitanya has similar privileges on most of the system. There is a vertical privilege escalation where you gain a higher level access from a normal user to an administrative user. And that's which is more critical, because the moment you get administrative privileges or higher rights, that's where the main game starts of compromising the system. This particular attack of vertical privilege escalation can cause major damages in the system, because the attacker has now moved from a regular user to an admin privilege user. And this is where the principle of least privilege comes into picture. You would have encountered this principle in so many ways throughout your life. To the kids we say, तुम बच्चे हो अभी इतना ही जान के रखो, इससे ज्यादा जानने की जरूरत नहीं. It goes down to that level as well, because it is the need to know basis. It is the minimum information required by you to execute your task. That's where the principle of least privilege comes into picture, and you manage it accordingly. IDOR we spoke about, and it becomes a very important example in the whole case. And I'll be taking you through example of IDOR and some of the API issues, because that's where the low-hanging fruit as well exists in attacks. So basically, not even very sophisticated users still try to break into. So if you are protecting this, your application is much better and stronger in that level. And then a lot of attacks we have seen happening in these directions. So let's see what are they, how does it work. Basically, the IDOR would require some kind of an identifier and a easy, enumerable kind of an identifier, like the CBSC example I gave you. The identifier there was a sequential number, which was just moving from one to another, or username, or anything like PAN card number. That's something which people know and people can change on the attack, type in from their own side and change. Had it been a 128 character long hash of a PAN card number, it would have become a little difficult. But the moment that attacker understands that it is hash of just the PAN card number and nothing else, their next step starts is to pick up all the PAN card number, hash it, and then start using that key. That's where the randomization works, wherein leaving the identifier not predictable. So if there's a predictable identifier, the attack works. The parameter manipulation, which happens either in the uh, request to the website or request to the API. And in most of the cases now it is towards the API. API has become such an important thing that the OWASP project, the OWASP project, which deals with top 10 web vulnerability, has a separate set of top 10 API issues. It has become such an important thing that it got its own place in standards and frameworks. So API body or API request can be manipulated to give you data. Then it also plays on the whole gap of authorization, where the microservice or the application which is accepting your API request, accepting your communication, is not being able to do the proper verification and spill out the data. All of this ultimately results to exposure of the data. Let's take this example where the get request was /API/profile API and ID is equal to 123. So what the response was, you get status is equal to success, data is equal to ID, name, email, phone number, age, whatever the data response could happen. Because the access is looking so simple, example.com/API/profile, ID is equal to something. The moment an attacker sees that, it becomes very enticing to change 123 to 234, 125, 127, 120, and see what kind of data is getting transferred. That's where the attacker plays and start accessing the data with IDOR. Then another example of IDOR we can see here is the invoice example. So this is a sample application. Let's create it, which shows the stored PDF file. It could be invoice, it could be anything else. If the parameter says something like /IDOR or whatever, /application/invoice, index.php, or invoice ID is equal to something. That's where the game changes. Change the ID and you see access to something else which was not meant for your eyes. And that's called as the IDOR, or insecure direct object reference. You're accessing the object directly without authentication mechanism. In an ideal world situation, the invoice 2 should have been accessible only to maybe accountant 1, whereas something else would have been available to some other users. This is one of the very common mistakes you would see in most of the web application, and that's what the target is, to teach kids about this and make sure that they go out smart and not do these mistakes. Then the way it is coded, you can have the broken access control in the APIs as well. Many of the REST APIs and GraphQL APIs frequently lack this proper authorization and validation on the API endpoints. One of the very common, one of the very interesting attack in this line was identified as a bug bounty by a researcher many years ago in the application called Facebook, wherein Facebook had gone through a whole chain of security and everything, and the attacker said that I can delete somebody's photo. It was challenged openly that, okay, show me if you can do it. And he went ahead, deleted photos posted by Mark Zuckerberg himself. You can find this news. It has been many years, but you can still dig about it in online. The API was delete photo. So let's take an example, facebook.com/management/add photo.php, delete photo.php, or whatever parameters that. And then you give the photo ID. The attacker was capable of enumerating variety of photograph IDs from the system and then passing it to the endpoint, the API endpoint, where the check was not done and it got compromised. The user was able to delete the photo of Mark Zuckerberg as well. That becomes suddenly an interesting thing. And this guy was awarded in a big time by Facebook back then. So those kind of issues can exist and do exist in variety of applications. As a security researcher, your role, the student's role, people who learn and get in the industry, their role is to A, not do this mistake, and B, identify such issues in different places and make sure that it is getting patched. There are other issues like over permissive fields where you can just bypass the value and then suddenly things become easy. You get a higher privileges, or even endpoint discovery. Version control system is one of the most easiest one in that line. You would see API slash V1, API slash V2. Many people have such kind of naming mechanism. The moment the attacker sees that I'm going to example.com slash API slash V3, take it for granted the attacker will try V2 and V1 and V4 as well. Even if it fails, that's fine. But the attacker would try to access that. Why? Because that's where the attacker sees that if someone is maintaining API name nomenclature by that, there's a higher potential or higher probability that they have left the other undocumented or improperly protected API endpoints loose. That's one of the possibility. There are tools online you can search for. One of the tools which I can think of is the directory searcher or GoBuster kind of an application, which is available on Kali Linux as well. Attackers use that to go ahead and automate this task to see whether such kind of fuzzing is available or not. So you would find such kind of tools. Attackers have made those for easy method, but it goes into the hand of low knowledge attackers as well, and they are able to compromise system. So that's possible. Broken access control, another example is this one where the administrative panel, this was for a test application which is created for security testing of an, or rather web application security testing trainings. There, you can see the application is built in a way that all you have to do is change the end directory where or endpoint where you are trying to access. It is clearly a misconfiguration where admin slash administrator panel, the change of this kind will allow user to reach a page, and in many cases it may or may not be authenticated. Okay, so such kind of issues do crop up in many cases, and that's where the knowledgeable, learned security researcher has to look for vulnerabilities and has to fix the issues. Moving forward, let's talk about the access control in the cloud, container, as well as the SaaS applications. Any application for that matter has this issue and has to be taken care of. So in case of a cloud, this is a very common issue which we have seen. The attacker has not broken into your application. The attacker has broken directly into your AWS account or Azure account. And that's one reason why Azure went into a mode of making sure that the two-factor authentication for administrative privilege user on Azure is mandatory. Why? Because attackers are looking for such weak endpoints, try to break in and get access. Okay. Could be the excessive permission. And this is where a lot many times the unlearned administrator or junior administrator do mistake. किसी को access चाहिए, we have to give him some access. Let's start selecting accesses and give as much as possible so that काम नहीं रुकना चाहिए. Very easy, yes, काम नहीं रुकना चाहिए. But at the same time, you have given so much access to the user that the end user has now privilege to go beyond it. That way, it can get into the privilege assignment methodology provided by the cloud provider for your own safety. But to make it simple, make it easier, you just kept giving more and more permission and it turned out bad on one day. Second could be the misconfigured access. It could be misconfigured S3 bucket or Azure blob or stuff like that, where initially to do something you wanted a read-write access, but later on it was a read-only access required for the application to work properly. But because you have not tightened it, you have not hardened it later on in the stage, you left it as is, which is now causing open read-write buckets available where attackers not only steal your data but also upload their malware or such malicious content and serve the malicious content via your website. Now think of it. Example.com, which is a very legitimate website, has a file called as example.com/user-uploads/documents/malware.exe. For rest of the world, when they see, they're seeing, boss, I'm trying to access the file from a legitimate website called example.com. But because the administrator had not configured it properly, the example.com is now serving malware, which causes the IP blacklisting and a lot of other issues. Then another very interesting misconfiguration which happens in cloud. You had a subdomain called as say data.example.com, which was created and assigned to maybe a server on Azure, AWS, or maybe a S3 bucket on AWS or blob on Azure. And now the work is over. That particular S3 file is deleted, or that particular blob is deleted, or that particular server, the IP address on which it was running, is removed. The moment it is removed, but your DNS is still pointing to the older vulnerable system, or rather older system, not vulnerable. At your point of time, it was perfectly fine. Another user of Azure can actually go ahead and create that setup, get into the same name, or rather get the same IP address and use it. That is very well possible, and attacker have been doing it, and that's called as a subdomain takeover. There was an IP address assigned to the previous virtual machine. You deleted that virtual machine, but you did not delete your DNS entry. Somebody else turn on the virtual machine, fresh virtual machine, accidentally gets your IP address. Now your IP is getting resolved. That IP is getting resolved with your DNS name, and it can be used. So that's also a loosely access control issue, but yes, a practical security threat which we have seen. The weak token handling and other stuff on the cloud, we have seen that and we have discussed about that. Plus, a lot of access to metadata or undocumented, unrestricted APIs, even on the cloud, or the container you are building, or the application which you're building and keeping on cloud, or the SaaS application, these have been the very common vulnerabilities. Most of the time, it is solvable by just one method, which is called as follow the best practices. In AWS, there is a project called as WAR, or called as Well Architected Review. Such kind of reviews can happen on various applications to see whether the way you are using cloud is properly configured or not. And these kind of, I would call them silly mistakes, are not there, and your system is secure. Then what could be the best practices? इतनी सारी समस्या सुन ली. How should we solve them? That's just one slide of the solution which I have kept. There are many other ways as well. But even if somebody takes care of these things, it helps to a great extent. Like whatever methodology of controls you are putting, authentication, authorization, let it be on the server side, not on the client side. There have been so many cases using client side issues we have seen. So let's have a control there, because a attacker can fiddle around with burp suite and tools like that to change the parameter going out of your web client. But the attacker cannot change that on the server side unless until the attacker has compromised the server. Manage your token properly. Have a secure methodology for your token management, which is like single-use tokens or short-lived tokens, very time-limited, but yet practical time frame. Then have the token rotation so that old stolen tokens and keys and cookies, etc., are not used for attacking the current user. We spoke about the CORS, restrictive CORS policies, which will help the cross object reference and the cross site request coming into the system. It will hold it. Or the next one is go with the principle of least privilege. We call it as need to know basis. Whatever is required mandatorily to perform the action, without that particular piece of information, the action cannot be completed. Do not give that access. Having said that, remember, security is always a multi-layer approach. It's always defense in depth. The problem is not that because it is in defense in depth mechanism, there are multiple layers. एक ने नहीं पकड़ा तो दूसरा पकड़ लेगा. If there are gaps, remember the gaps can be aligned, and once the gaps are aligned together, attacks can still happen. So have your defense in depth, but again with a proper methodology of making sure each layer is tight enough. With that, I am done with my session. Happy to take up questions if you have.
Thank you, Rohit sir. Sir, one question from my side that may be a little different other than these. So, whenever we visit any banking website, we ensure that the website is genuine. Only then I'll be filling my credentials on that. So
Yeah.
one of the ways is this digital certificates, so which I can ensure that yes, this is a genuine website. My question is that we can find the related details in the cert manager of our system. I can
Right.
find third-party root certifications authorities, and the list would be there. My question is how that list to whom that certificate is issued by is maintained, who is taking care of all these kind of the things, and how my system come to know that yes, now DigiCert is not offering the certificate to the ICICI Bank. It is another party who is authorizing the certificate to the ICICI.
Okay, there are two parts. Number one, how does it comes into the cert manager? it is a requirement. Let me take it in an example manner. There is the Home Ministry of Government of India, which says identification should be issued. Then there is the traffic department who's issuing the driving license, and driving license can be used as an identity method. Traffic department, my question is, who has authorized traffic department to issue a card?
Okay.
Government of India allows traffic department, and traffic department verifies traffic department, and traffic department verifies the user. And by that virtue, we ultimately accept that as a valid thing, right? It's a chain of command, a chain of authority, correct?
Yes.
Similar way, the certificates are maintained in that chain where there's a root certifying authority. The root certifying authority have different child certifying authorities for different purposes. If we have to embed everybody's certificate in each browser, the task becomes mammoth and brings in an issue of attacks factor there. Now, that's why the chain is there. If you are not accepted, I will look at your boss. If your boss is not accepted, I will look at their boss. Finally, somebody would be there to say that, yes, I am the one which is trusted, and everybody in the chain is now trusted to give authority. Fine. That was the first part of your question. How does the cert manager get to know about it? Secondly, the question is, I go to a fake website of ICICI, or there is a subdomain of ICICI. Let's say that ICICI Bank has an issue of subdomain takeover. There was an old domain or endpoint URL called as mymoney.icicibank.com. Somebody went ahead, domain takeover, got access to that subdomain and hosting a website. That person can go and buy certificate from anyone, like even the free certificate from, let's say, Encrypt or something, wherein when the end user goes, he sees a valid certificate, no certificate warning, all green. How will ICICI Bank protect in that particular case? In the DNS record, there is a resource record type called as CAA. CAA, or certifying authorities, is a list of certificate provider which ICICI Bank says, I will take certificate only from these. Like ICICI Bank says, VeriSign and GeoTrust are my valid certificate provider. Fair enough? Because ICICI as a process has defined that I will always buy certificate from these two places. And the subdomain takeover attacker goes ahead and takes the certificate from Google R3, or Let's Encrypt R1, R2, or GoDaddy, or anyone else. That certificate will not be valid because the DNS record of ICICI already says, boss, any other certificate, I have not issued it, don't trust them. And that's where the certificate can play a big role with such a minor configuration called as CAA.
Okay.
The bad part of that, ma'am, is not many people use CAA properly. It's hardly used, but it's a very powerful tool given by ICANN, by the DNS controls to everyone.
I have gone through the many of the DNS record types. Even I have missed the CA that you just have mentioned.
Look
Thank
at the
you so much, sir.
CAA record type. You will get a lot of information there.
Okay, definitely, sir. I'll try next time.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much, sir. Really, your session has provided a very clear and practical understanding regarding all the access control mechanisms that can be evaluated wherever the weaknesses commonly we find, how adversaries exploit them, all explanation that you just have provided. These were not technically comprehensive, but also enriched with the real world perspective. So your emphasis on the strategic thinking, structured defense mindset, and proactive risk anticipation that has offered our participants a deeper and more view of the web application security. I sincerely appreciate the time and the expertise you have shared with us today. The depth of insights and the practical perspectives that you have provided will undoubtedly support all the participants in enhancing their teaching, research, and their professional practices in the cybersecurity field. At last, again, I would like to thank all the participants who have uh, participates in this session and attentively listen you. Definitely, they will gain a lot from this. Thank you again. Thank you once again, Rohit sir. I would like to request all the participants and Rohit sir also please switch on your camera so that I can record the scene, please.
Sure, ma'am.
I'm requesting to all the participants also please switch on your cameras.
There were some good questions from Chaitanya's side. So if there is an option, please pass on a chocolate from my side to Chaitanya.
Thank you, sir.
And Chaitanya, you can turn on the
Definitely.
camera in that case.
Yes, participants, please switch on your cameras. Yes, thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Rohit sir.
Thank you,
Thank you,
ma'am.
everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yes, all the participants, the link is already shared for the attendance and the feedback. Please fill it as soon as possible.
Hello. Hello, Pratika Lalwal. Am I audible?
Yes, Mr. Chaitanya, you're audible.
Dr. Visu, ma'am, I have a humble request. Is this possible to share like attendance link in the group? Sometime what happens, there is some kind of like network issue in my hometown, and like in between meeting goes and I have to rejoin, and all
Okay,
the like previous
no
chat
issues.
goes
I'll
delete.
share the link privately in your inbox only. And those
Okay.
whosoever is facing the same issue, please let me know. I'll share the link with them.
Some kind of network issue these days in my hometown, so it's my humble request to you. And like what happened if we rejoin, all the previous chats goes delete.
Okay, I share it with you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, Mr. Chaitanya, the link is already in the chat box. Have you checked it now?
Yes, ma'am.
Try to
I
access
have
it.
it. Yes, ma'am.
Recent.
I'm just sharing it once again. Everyone do access the link. If you're facing any kind of the issue, please let me know.